Genesis 1 affirms the value and dignity of all work as part of God's great master plan for the world. But deeply hidden and unspoken beliefs and prejudices inside the local church, in the marketplace, in the home, and in culture can affect one's value, self-worth, and contributions in the world. These are just lies that we've unwittingly bought into, lies that can lead us unknowingly even into a form of idolatry. These three lies can hold us back from the full realization of God's work. The three lies are based on what we do for work, where we work, and who does the work. Well, I like to say that before Jesus gave us the Great Commission in Matthew 28, God gave Adam and Eve what I call the Great Management Commission in Genesis 1. In Genesis 1, 27 through 28, we read, "So God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God he created them, both male and female he created them. God blessed them and said to them, 'Be fruitful, increase in number, fill the earth and subdue it. Rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky and over every living creature that moves on the ground.'" This passage is often spoken of as the creation mandate. In this perfect world without sin, God delegated his authority to Adam and Eve to rule and manage the earth with his authority. In God's perfection in creation, he created mankind as male and female, blessing them and giving them an assignment, work to be done, and a purpose in the world. What follows in verse 28 is a direction of intention for those created in the image of God, and that is to let them have dominion. This means to master, to control over, to rule, and to lead every part of creation mentioned in the previous verses in chapter 1. Well, they were to bring out value on earth for human flourishing. And an example of bringing out value out of the earth today for human flourishing would be taking silica, the primary component of sand, and making it into a silicone chip. Both man and woman have the responsibility with God's authority to rule and manage the earth and all that is produced within it. So where did we go off course? And what's the problem, and how do we view work today? So when sin entered the world in Genesis 3, everything was affected: health, family, relationships, justice, the environment, money, and work, just to name a few. Sin also distorted how we think of God's original management commission in Genesis 1. The first lie I believe we hold about work is what we do. That might be an example between a CEO and a construction worker. A CEO, yes, casts a longer shadow of influence in culture and community maybe than a construction worker. But have you noticed that when a CEO or a high-ranking business or government official walks into a room, it's almost like they have starstruck quality? But we don't give that same kind of attention and admiration to someone who, say, is a construction worker or a factory worker. We look at the work done in an office perhaps more valuable as work that's done in a factory. But all of this work is required in the engine called the world. It's all required to make the world work. In biblical times, jobs that were done with their hands and people who were laborers were seen as less prestigious and less important than jobs who were managerial or used their mind. And I think that maybe that still might hold true for today. If we were to be honest with ourselves, do we tend to think less of the gardener or the mechanic simply because of the work that they do? So pastors, how can the church help affirm our theology of work and vocation so that no matter what the type of work or industry that a person works in, that they can still profit from it and have a sense of value? Employers, all work is required to make an organization work. A hospital would shut down if janitorial simply did not keep it clean. The second lie is where you work. Now, if we were to be honest with ourselves and with the culture around us, would we find that we place a higher value and assumption of importance on the work that receives a paycheck versus work in the home or even volunteer work? Or maybe when the husband comes home after a long day at work and he's greeted by his wife, who has been home all day with the kids herself, does he see her as a person to serve him as he relaxes? Or maybe as a partner in life who has been working all day herself, managing her own part of God's creation? The where we work distinction, I think, can be made between work that receives a paycheck versus work that's done in the home and volunteer work. And it also can be a distinction of the work of the pastor in the local church perhaps is more important than other types of work in the world where decisions are being made that affect culture, lives, and the very fabric of our communities. The third lie is who does the work. God created male and female distinctly different from each other in how our brains function, how we interpret situations, problem solve, and lead. Those decisions and differences should be complementary as together man and woman rule and manage God's creation. God calls both men and women to work inside the home and in the marketplace. Value and opportunities based primarily on gender, either way, is a distortion of God's original design for the work. The male and the female brains develop differently even in the womb. God made the genders different enough so that it was His design to make sure that we work together in the gifts and callings each one's been assigned. Because if we don't, we're not as effective in our own work and in the world. So back to Genesis 1:27. So God created mankind in His own image. In the image of God, He created them, male and female. He created them. Together, man and woman represent the image of God. So here are a few questions for you to consider with your small group or in your own time. First, which of these three lies have you bought into and believed? Second, what are you going to do differently regarding how you perceive work and its value? And third, who can you help, encourage, or promote today who may be on the fringes and may be looking for access, affirmation, or appreciation? May God bless you in your journey in work.